It's branding. Like we pitch it as branding, right? If you create touch points, and you're in another one of those industries that's related to timing. There's a certain, if people know who you are and they trust your services and they trust your brand and they see your brand as recognizable, that when they need spray foam insulation, when they build another garage and want to get it spray foam, when they build another house, when they build a shed outside, they know who to call. Just run the sound. We're not even going to intro this. We're sitting with Kyle Papp, and Kyle, let's keep it going. We're rolling here. So what is when you transitioned from tools to management, what was the biggest challenge? Because so many business owners have that dilemma where they have to start to manage people and they have to be part of planning and running the business rather than being in the business.
Yeah, I feel like time management was a big one. I feel like when you're on the tools, your scope is in front of you often. You can see it. You can gauge your progress. When you're dealing with managing people and expectations of a lot of other streams of demands, time management's pretty difficult when you first start off, because I feel like, at least with my personality and with my vision of what being successful is meeting all requirements, getting back to everybody in a timely fashion, and sometimes that was very challenging because you maybe put a little bit too much emphasis on certain things, maybe you don't delegate enough, whatever the challenge might be. I think that was maybe one of the bigger things.
We're on the same page and we agree there. We always have to get back to the customer. We always have to respond to everyone. So for me, the hardest problem is, as we grew, we had less time, and I had less time, and then we had to delegate some of those touch point tasks. Mm-hmm. How do you deal with that? Because I still am learning on that front.
I don't think there's any one book, any one opinion that can answer that question. I think it's somewhat based on comfort level, somewhat based on your team's skill sets. Depending on how big of a company it is, of course. I mean, sometimes there's very dedicated roles that you just have to trust people to perform in those roles. But yeah, I don't know if I can answer that question, because I think you need to try to focus on what your skill sets are best suited for. Sometimes that doesn't mean doing everything you did previously for that client. Maybe you're, like you say, delegating certain parts of it. It's a tough question. I don't think I have it figured out. I think it needs to evolve continually a bit based on your team and based on the demands of what kind of business you're running. I think things change quite often.
I've been bringing this up a couple times. We all know, I think everyone now knows, that entrepreneurship takes work. You have to work, you have to hustle. But there's also the emotional strain that comes along with being in that management role and in entrepreneurship. So how do you handle the emotional strain and the ups and downs of business? And right now we're in Alberta, right? We're in a lower period.
Yeah.
So there's real highs in Alberta and there's real lows as we go through the oil cycle. So how do you handle those emotional ups and downs?
I feel like maybe some of it is lent to the way, like personality-wise. I think everyone has to find their ways of dealing with stress. Hopefully they're mostly always positive. I know there's negative ways to deal with stress, for sure. Some people hit the gym, some people go and do something with their family. I think most importantly perhaps, is to budget some time for yourself to manage that stress. That's maybe something I've changed recently, where you're working maybe a bit, the phrase of
working heavy hours,
burning the candle from both ends, so to speak. I think you need to have that time to recharge and find your outlet, and hopefully it's positive. I think people can get caught up in that negativity that stress sometimes brings.
It becomes an endless loop sometimes, I think.
Yeah, you can easily get bogged down by it, I guess, if that's what you mean. Like, it kind of just keeps coming, and if you can't reset that morning on a fresh start of a work day, it feels like you can kind of, it affects your focus. Yeah, it can feel like it comes in loops. I would have to agree.
I find that that's one thing I found myself as I started to deal with the stresses of business. It would be like a never-ending cycle. You get a little more stressed, and then you sleep a little less, then you work a little harder, then you're a little more stressed, then you sleep a little less, you work a little harder, and it just keeps revolving and getting worse and worse, and you have to find that reset button that you mentioned. For me it's sports, or for me it's getting away and doing some exercise. I want to play hockey or playing golf where it's just a pure reset. I don't think about work at all. Yep. And you have to find those moments, I think.
Yeah, for me, I mean, in my childhood, I played video games. I still try to find a little bit of time for that. I think it's a high engagement way that you can busy your mind without the distractions of work. Similarly, sports, if you're hyper competitive, again, you're focusing on the game rather than any other stresses. I think those are the types of things that I found that help me kind of reset. I think that's what I try to do. And you don't have to talk about this if you don't want, but you just had a baby. And has that helped you reset going home? Yeah.
And not worrying about work, because there's something so special waiting at home every Sunday.
I think it's a double-sided coin. Stress, whether it be lack of sleep or making sure that you have a larger family to provide for now. But that's not really getting me down too much. I'm a pretty heavy sleeper. Number one, number two, I'm pretty positive-minded most of the time. But I think, coming home to a smiling little baby that's excited to see you has been a treat, a change in my life for sure. Looking forward to getting home on a daily basis, and I don't know, just another little focus change that I'm trying to manage my hours a bit more carefully and do a little bit of work at home, but mostly try to be there for the wife and help out as much as I can.
It's a little change in focus, but we have those changes in focus throughout life. Doesn't matter.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I'm experiencing my little pathway, and there's lots of changes that people go through in general that kind of fit the same line of thinking that you're mentioning.
When we talk about now your quote a little bit, I love this one. You sent us a couple. This was definitely the one that was going to make it to the show. So, I find that the harder I work, the more luck I seem to have. Thomas Jefferson. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about this. Here, you hold it, because I think we got to get her in the camera.
Sure.
What does that one mean to you, and how do you apply it?
Well, I think it kind of spoke to me. I'm not a huge person I'm not a person that really thinks a whole bunch about quotes and more successful men and trying to learn from their successes. I mean, maybe I should devote some time to that, but in essence, this one kind of stuck out to me as being in the now. I feel like that's one of the points that I felt more strongly about. Being in the now just means, don't worry about the past, don't worry about the future when you have a task at hand. If you're working towards a goal and you work hard towards that goal, you don't hold anything back. Things tend to fall in place somewhat. As long as your aim is true and you have you've done your work and you've done your research and you're sure there's always points where that doesn't maybe apply or work, but I find that if you're focusing on your work and you're working hard, things tend to work out. Call it luck, call it whatever you want. But
call it fate, call it miracle, call it luck.
Yeah.
Call it anything. At the end of the day, hard work pays off.
Yeah, I think maybe to quickly touch on it, like I feel like work ethic, like learning it from my father and looking at people that I respect, hard work tends to always pay off, and I think finding that rhythm or finding that pride or whatever it is for someone to motivate themselves to reach these goals and work hard. I think that's what it's about. I don't really believe in luck. I don't have the luxury of spending too much time pondering luck.
Yeah.
I think good things happen to people that are working towards what they're trying to do.
Can't agree with that more. What is, okay, so let's take that hard work the next 5 years. What do the next 5 years look like for you? And or have you even pondered that?
I have pondered it some, but I think it's a bit open-ended right now. I mean, having a baby, the market the way it is.
Yep.
I don't try to have too narrow of a focus. I don't have an exact plan in mind. 5 years, I think I'm just going to continue to work hard, work towards my goals of furthering myself, growing the business. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit muddy for me right now, meaning I don't have a really clear picture of 5-10 years. I think whether it be personal goals or business goals, I think health of the business, health of my family, and just
which at the end of the day is the most important thing.
Yeah, so nothing too specific, to be honest. Perhaps it's my narrow vision right now of getting lost in my work a little bit.
Yeah.
And especially right now, I think sometimes you got to put your nose down and get to it. Where, yeah, I don't know. I don't have any great excuses. I haven't been pondering the 5 years to a precise point. Just trying to do more of the same, I guess.
So let's take that. So let's say then, what are you doing now then to take Thermo business, personal life into our new technological era, our digital era now, and focus on, like, I know you've put a lot of time into the Thermo site, you've put a lot of time into how you generate leads. What is the business looking like now with advancing that technology? Tell me about, for example, the trackers in the trucks and the different things that you have within the company that help you guys streamline the process.
Yeah, I think if you're not keeping on top of it, I feel like you're going to be left behind. You got to kind of invest and spend some time to stay relevant and let the technology work for you, rather than against you. If a competitor is finding an angle that is lowering costs. In general, I think I'm a little bit lucky that way, being relatively involved with technology throughout my school and younger adult life. So some of the stuff we've been doing is we developed an app to help process paperwork. It's pretty paperwork heavy.
Streamlines
work that we do. A lot of details and data that needs to be collected, and a lot of variables that need to be costed. So we developed an app to help handle all that. It's cutting down administrative work, helps keep everything organized. And I mean, working with you guys, I think it's good to have a presence on social media. I think that's quite huge to just kind of be recognizable. There's probably a better one out there.
It's branding. Like we pitch it as branding, right? If you create touch points, and you're in another one of those industries that's related to timing. There's a certain, if people know who you are and they trust your services and they trust your brand and they see your brand as recognizable, that when they need spray foam insulation, when they build another garage and want to get it spray foam, when they build another house, when they build a shed outside, they know who to call. So staying and keeping those touch points up, staying top of mind has always been important, and I think will continue to be important in all businesses.
Yeah, I feel like in our industry specifically, like narrowing in on spray foam, because it's by volume it's the larger part of our business, but it's still a fairly new industry, and new seems like a funny word to use because I think it's been around since the 70s, but it's still fairly easy to access the market, start up a business and kind of shake things up as far as, like Edmonton market is a somewhat large market, but it's not massive. So anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's fairly easy to start
the barriers to entry are not huge.
Yeah. So being relevant and having that presence, it might help make that decision of, okay, well, here's spray foam company A and here's his price, and there's spray foam company B. They look like their branding is really in order. They look like they've been here for a while. They maybe make a few searches. They see some Facebook posts. It just looks so much more authentic. I feel like that's one of the big reasons that we want to invest in that, to just have that bit of a connection with our audience and help make those decisions if it's not clear. I mean, without that, then you're just looking at numbers and trusting face value, and depending on how good of a salesman is, of convincing you that they're the right choice. I don't know. That was my line of thinking, but.
Well, Kyle, keep offering that value, keep creating those touch points with the customers, keep working hard, and I think the luck will follow. Let's leave it there for today. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you.
And we'll get you back again sometime.
For sure.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you.